I'll never forget the moment it all began, not because of the grand revelations or the life-altering discoveries, but because of something so simple, something so innocent that, in hindsight, could have been the first warning sign. It came in the form of a package. I was sitting in my office, finishing up some work late one evening when the doorbell rang. It was strange. It wasn't like I was expecting anything, and honestly, I wasn't in the mood to interact with anyone. But when the knock came again, louder this time, I couldn't ignore it. I stood up, walked over to the door, and opened it to find a small, unmarked box sitting on the doorstep. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Maybe it was for one of the neighbors. But when I picked it up, there was no address on it. No return label, nothing to indicate who had sent it or why. Just a plain, brown cardboard box with a simple piece of white tape sealing it shut. My heart started to race a little. I know it sounds ridiculous now, but at that moment, something inside me told me to be cautious. Why would someone leave a random package at my door in the middle of the night? I turned it over in my hands, inspecting it, looking for any hint of its origin. But there was nothing, just a plain box. My curiosity got the better of me, so I took it inside. When I sat down at my kitchen table, I carefully sliced through the tape with a knife and opened it. Inside, there was a single envelope, no return address, no name. Just an ordinary envelope, sealed shut. I took it out and turned it over, but there was nothing on the outside, no clue as to who had sent it or what it contained. I opened it, my hands a little shaky, and pulled out a piece of paper. It was a note, handwritten, with neat but hurried penmanship. Look at her purse. Look at the bottom of it. You'll find what you've been looking for. The words hit me like a punch to the stomach. Look at her purse? What was this even about? And what could possibly be hidden at the bottom of her purse that I needed to find? My thoughts were racing. The first thing that crossed my mind was Olivia, my wife. But why would someone send me something like this? What did they mean by what you've been looking for? I had no idea what was going on, but it was clear that this wasn't some kind of joke. My first instinct was to dismiss it, to chalk it up to a prank or some kind of twisted joke. But the more I thought about it, the more I couldn't shake the feeling that this was important, that this was a message for me, a message I needed to act on. The next morning, Olivia was out. She had gone to run errands, as usual, and I was alone in the house. I stood in the living room, looking at the note in my hand, trying to decide what to do. Should I confront her about it? Should I just ignore it? My mind was filled with questions, each one more confusing than the last. But in the end, I couldn't ignore it. Something about the note felt urgent. I needed to know what was going on. So I waited. I waited for her to come back. When she walked through the door a couple of hours later, she was in a rush, her arms full of grocery bags. She didn't even look at me right away, too busy with the mundane tasks of the day. But as she moved around the kitchen, I noticed something. She was smiling. That same smile she'd had for years, the smile that used to be my anchor. But today, it felt different. It felt rehearsed, like she was trying to convince herself of something. I couldn't wait any longer. I needed to ask her about it. Olivia, I said, my voice unsteady. I need to ask you something. She turned to me, a slight frown on her face. What is it? She replied, her voice a little sharper than usual. I hesitated for a moment, unsure of how to bring it up. But the words spilled out before I could stop them. Do you mind if I look through your purse? I found something. Something I need to know about. She froze, her eyes locking with mine. There was a flicker of something, fear? Surprise? It was hard to tell, but it was enough to make my stomach churn. I'm sorry, what? She asked, her voice now low and cautious. I nodded, holding up the note that had brought me to this point. I just need to look through your purse. Someone left this for me. It says I'll find something in it. Something I've been looking for. Her eyes widened, and I saw her lips tremble slightly. She wasn't angry. She wasn't confused. She was scared, and that scared me even more. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. She just stood there, frozen, staring at me with wide eyes, as if trying to make a decision. Finally, she spoke, her voice almost too soft to hear. You don't need to do this. Trust me. But her words only made my heart race faster. Trust her? Was she asking me to ignore the message? To forget the note and go back to my safe, comfortable life? I looked at her purse, which was lying innocently on the table beside her. And for the first time in my life, I felt something shift deep inside me. Something cold, something unsettling. I had to do it. I had to know. And with that thought, I walked over to her purse. I approached her purse slowly, The note still clenched in my hand, its message echoing in my mind. Look at the bottom of her purse. That simple instruction felt like a weight bearing down on me. I could see Olivia's nervousness as she stood there, watching me. The air between us felt thick, charged with a tension I couldn't explain. She took a step forward, her hand hovering near her purse, as if she was about to stop me. "Please," she whispered, "don't do this. You don't need to know." But the urgency I felt made me ignore her. I couldn't turn back now. My fingers trembled as I unzipped her purse. The inside was a mess, the usual clutter, lip balm, receipts, some loose change. Nothing out of the ordinary. But there, at the bottom, underneath a crumpled receipt, I saw something gleam. A small metallic object. I pulled it out quickly. It was a key. A small, silver key, wrapped in a piece of tissue paper. There was nothing else in the purse that seemed significant. Just this key. My mind raced. What was this key for? Where did it lead? And why had it been hidden so carefully? I turned to Olivia, holding the key in my hand, my heart pounding. She looked pale, her lips parted in shock. She opened her mouth to say something, but no words came out. "Olivia, what is this?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. The key felt heavier than it looked, as if it carried the weight of every unanswered question I had. She swallowed hard, her eyes darting between the key and my face. She took a deep breath, as if gathering her strength. "It's not what you think," she finally said. "Please, just trust me. There's more to this. You don't understand yet." I wasn't sure what I expected, but it wasn't this. My mind was spinning with possibilities. Who would send me a message like that? Why would someone want me to find this key? And why had Olivia been hiding it? I wanted to ask her everything. I wanted to demand answers right then and there. But a part of me, a small voice deep inside, told me to stay calm. I had to think this through. So, instead of confronting her further, I tucked the key in my pocket, my fingers still trembling. "I need to know the truth, Olivia," I said quietly, trying to steady my voice. "Why did someone leave this for me? Why did they want me to find it in your purse?" She shook her head, her eyes filling with tears. "It's complicated. I never wanted you to find out like this. But now that you have, there's no turning back. I have to tell you everything." At that moment, I knew things would never be the same. I wasn't sure what kind of game this was, or who was playing it, but I was already too deep in. I had to know the rest. What had Olivia been keeping from me? And who was behind all of this? I looked at her, my heart heavy with the realization that everything I thought I knew about my life, about her, was starting to crumble. She took a deep breath and began, her voice shaking but determined. "There's a place I've been going to for months now. A place I thought I could keep secret, but I should have known better. And the key is for that place." I stood there, stunned, not sure what to say. "What place? What are you talking about?" She looked down at the floor, unable to meet my gaze. "It's a place that I didn't want you to know about. It's a place I've been meeting someone." The words hit me like a slap. I couldn't breathe. "Meeting someone?" I asked, my voice hoarse. "Who? Why would you keep that from me?" She took another step back, her face pale as she wiped a tear from her cheek. "It's not what you think. I never meant for any of this to happen, but I've been seeing someone else." I felt like the ground had been pulled from under me. My body froze as the shock of her words hit me full force. Olivia, my wife, had been seeing someone else. The woman I thought I knew, trusted, had been lying to me, sneaking behind my back. But why? Why would she do this? What had I missed? "I'm so sorry," she whispered, her voice cracking. "I never wanted to hurt you, but it's over now. I promise. It has to be." But her words didn't comfort me. They only made me feel more betrayed, more confused than ever before. Who was this person she had been seeing? And how had I never seen the signs? I needed answers, and Olivia knew it. She was the key to unlocking this entire mystery. And for the first time, I realized that the life I thought I had, the life I thought we had, was built on secrets and lies. And those lies were about to be exposed. But first, I needed to know about this place. I needed to find out what Olivia had been hiding. Olivia's words hung in the air, a heavy fog of confusion and betrayal. She had been seeing someone else, and for months, I had no idea. I couldn't wrap my mind around it. But there was more. She wasn't just confessing. She was trembling, as if the weight of this secret had crushed her completely. "I never meant to hurt you," she repeated, her voice breaking. "I thought I could keep it under control, but it spiraled out of hand. I didn't know how to stop. I felt anger bubble up inside me. But there was something else too, something darker. Fear. The thought of my wife, the woman I trusted more than anyone, being involved with someone else, it felt like a nightmare. Who is he? I asked, the words escaping before I could stop them. I needed to know. I had to. She looked away, her eyes darting toward the floor. His name's Mark. I met him at a conference. I didn't expect it to go the way it did. But he understood me in a way you didn't, and it just happened. I didn't know how to react. She wasn't apologizing for the betrayal, not really. She was apologizing for getting caught. The truth settled in like a cold stone in my chest. So what now? What's the next part of this story? She stood silent for a moment, her hands shaking as she clasped them together in front of her. There's a place, she whispered. A house. A place we went. A lot. It's not far from here. The word struck me like a slap. A house. Where? My head spun, trying to piece together the fragments of her confession. I don't understand, I said, struggling to control my voice. You've been meeting him there? What are you trying to tell me, Olivia? She took a deep breath, as if gathering the courage to say what she hadn't been able to all this time. The key you found, it opens the door to that house. The shock hit harder than I could have imagined. The key I'd found earlier wasn't just a symbol. It wasn't just a random item. It was the key to something, to a place where my wife had been with another man. The truth was sinking in like quicksand, and the more I learned, the more I wanted to crawl out of it, to escape the suffocating reality of it all. Why? I managed to ask. Why did you keep this from me? Her face twisted with guilt, and she swallowed hard. Because I didn't want to lose you. I didn't want to face what I'd done. But now, you know, and I can't hide it anymore. I looked at the key in my hand, the cold metal almost burning my palm. So what's next? I asked, my voice trembling. What do I do with this key? What do I do with the truth? Olivia's eyes filled with tears, and for the first time since this whole nightmare began, she reached out to me. You don't have to go. You don't have to see the house or meet him. You don't have to. But I was already moving. Something inside me, something raw and untamed, pushed me forward. I wasn't going to sit around and let her lie to me anymore. I wasn't going to let this end without confronting whatever secrets she was keeping hidden. I grabbed my jacket from the back of the chair. I'm going, I said, more to myself than to her. I need to see it with my own eyes. Olivia's voice cracked. Please, don't. But I was already out the door, the key burning a hole in my pocket. The house was waiting. I don't know what I expected, but it wasn't this. The house was on the outskirts of town, tucked away behind overgrown trees and an iron gate that creaked in the wind. As I approached, the unease in my chest grew heavier. I parked the car on the side of the road, not wanting to draw attention, and sat there for a few minutes, staring at the dark silhouette of the house through the windshield. The key in my pocket felt like a lead weight. It was as if it knew more than I did, as if it held the answers to questions I wasn't ready to ask. But there was no turning back now. I had to see it. I had to know where my wife had been. I stepped out of the car and walked toward the gate. The closer I got, the more the silence seemed to swallow me. There was no sound here, no dogs barking, no distant chatter, just the soft rustling of the trees. My heartbeat was the loudest thing in the world, and every step I took felt like it echoed across the empty night. The gate was old and rusted, but the key fit perfectly. It clicked open with a satisfying sound, and I pushed it forward, wincing at the squeal of the hinges. I stepped inside, my eyes scanning the area around me. The house loomed ahead, its windows dark and vacant, as if it hadn't been touched in years. The paint was peeling, and the lawn was overgrown with weeds. But there was something about it, something that felt off, like the place was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I walked up the creaky steps, my hand trembling as I reached for the door. The key slid into the lock easily, and when I turned it, the door swung open with a soft groan. I stood there for a moment, the threshold between my life and whatever secret Olivia had been keeping. And then I stepped inside. The air was thick with dust. The floor creaked under my weight, and the smell of stale air and old furniture hit me immediately. I was in a living room of sorts, dimly lit, the curtains drawn shut, the only light coming from the moon filtering through cracks in the walls. Everything was eerily still, as if this place had been abandoned for years. I walked deeper into the house, my heart racing in my chest. Every room I passed seemed to grow colder, and I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. Then I found it. At the far end of the hallway was a door, slightly ajar. My breath caught in my throat. I had no idea what I was walking into, but I couldn't stop now. I pushed the door open slowly. Inside was a small, dimly lit room. A bed, a desk, a few chairs. But what caught my attention immediately were the photos scattered across the desk. I walked toward it, my fingers trembling as I picked one up. It was a picture of Olivia. But this wasn't just a casual snapshot. It was taken in this very room. Her smiling face, her eyes bright, as if she had been happy here. My heart dropped. This was her secret. This room, this house, it wasn't just some rendezvous. It was a place she'd felt comfortable. A place she'd returned to over and over again, as if she had been living a double life. I looked around the room, my mind racing. What had been going on in here? What had Olivia been doing? I noticed a journal on the desk, its leather cover worn with age. My fingers hovered over it for a moment before I opened it. The pages were filled with scribbled notes, some of them written in a hurried, frantic hand, others in a more calm, methodical script. It was a collection of thoughts, confessions, and observations. One entry caught my eye. It was dated only a few weeks ago. Tonight, I'll see him again. Every time I'm with him, I feel alive in a way I haven't in years. I know it's wrong, but I can't stop. I can't let go. I felt a wave of nausea hit me. This wasn't just an affair. This was an obsession. Olivia hadn't just been unfaithful. She had been emotionally invested, entangled in something far deeper than I had ever imagined. I closed the journal quickly, my hands shaking. I had to know more. I couldn't leave this house without answers. But as I turned to leave the room, I heard something. A noise, faint but unmistakable, a creak from somewhere upstairs. My blood ran cold. Someone was here. Someone was in this house with me. I wasn't alone. I froze. The sound echoed through the house, faint but deliberate, footsteps. Someone was upstairs, moving slowly, almost cautiously. My heart pounded in my chest, the noise in my ears growing louder. I couldn't just stand there, rooted to the spot. But I also couldn't make a sound. The house felt like it was closing in on me. I scanned the room quickly, looking for something, anything, that could offer protection. But there was nothing. Just the journal, the photos, the dust settling around me. The footsteps grew louder, and I knew I couldn't stay here much longer. I had to figure out who was up there and why they were here. I turned back toward the door, my pulse hammering in my ears, and crept toward the stairs. Every step I took seemed to reverberate through the empty house, the floorboards creaking under my weight. I kept moving, my mind racing. Who could it be? Was it Olivia? Had she followed me here? Or was it someone else, someone I didn't know? The stairs creaked under my feet as I ascended. The darkness above seemed to stretch out endlessly. I reached the top and paused, listening carefully. The footsteps had stopped. I felt my breath catch in my throat. Whoever it was had to be close. I could hear the faintest rustle, almost like something being moved in the next room. I took a step forward, the floor creaking beneath me, but then the door at the end of the hallway opened. A shadow moved across the light. Someone was there. I could barely make out the shape, but I could see enough to know they weren't alone. It was Olivia, but she wasn't alone. Mark was with her. I stood there, my stomach dropping as I watched them. They were talking, but I couldn't hear the words. I didn't need to. The way they stood together, the closeness, the familiarity, it was all too much. They were too comfortable. I wanted to say something, to shout, to demand answers. But I couldn't make a sound. I was paralyzed. My heart was racing. And then Olivia turned toward me. She saw me standing in the hallway, her eyes wide with shock. Mark followed her gaze, his expression darkening as he noticed me. "Ryan," Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "What are you doing here?" I didn't know how to respond. I wanted to scream, to demand an explanation, but all that came out was a strained, "What is this?" Mark stepped forward, his face hardening. "I think you should leave." It was then that I realized I wasn't just in a house full of secrets. I was in a house full of lies. The words hung in the air between us, thick with tension. My mind was spinning, my chest tight. Olivia's eyes were filled with panic, her hand trembling slightly as she reached out to me. But Mark stood there, as calm as ever, like this was just another day. Another day of my world crumbling. I could feel the heat rise in my body, the anger starting to boil over. "What is this, Olivia?" I said again, my voice more forceful this time. What's going on here? Why are you doing this? Olivia took a step toward me, but Mark quickly moved in front of her, his posture protective, almost threatening. You need to leave, he said, his voice low and cold. For a moment, I just stared at him. Who the hell did he think he was? He wasn't the one who had been lied to. He wasn't the one who had been living a lie for months. I'm not leaving until I get answers, I said, my voice steady but sharp. I wasn't going anywhere. Not yet. Olivia looked between the two of us, her face pale, tears beginning to well in her eyes. Please, she whispered. This isn't how it's supposed to happen. How it's supposed to happen. I repeated, my voice rising in disbelief. You thought you could just keep this from me? For months? What the hell were you thinking, Olivia? Mark stepped closer, his presence looming, like he was trying to force me out of the room. But I wasn't intimidated. I wasn't leaving until I got the truth. I'm not going anywhere until I hear the truth, I said, my eyes locked on Olivia. You owe me that much. She looked at me, her lips trembling. Ryan, I never wanted you to find out like this. I was going to tell you, but I was scared. I didn't know how. I didn't know how to face you after everything I'd done. Done? I almost laughed, but there was no humor in it. You've been seeing him behind my back. That's not done, Olivia. That's betrayal. I could see her break a little bit more with each word. She wasn't fighting it anymore. She was just there. Her guard was down, and I could tell she was trying to hold it all together, but the tears were starting to fall. I didn't mean for it to happen, she whispered. But it did. And now I can't undo it. I can't take it back. Who the hell is he to you? I shot at Mark, my eyes narrowing. What is this? Why are you here, in this house, with my wife? Mark looked at me with cold eyes, not bothered by my anger. He was used to it, I could tell. I'm not your enemy, he said. But you need to understand, Olivia and I have something. It's not just physical. It's not just about an affair. We have a connection. The words hit me harder than I expected. A connection? What kind of connection did they have? I had seen the photos, heard the confessions, but this, hearing it from his mouth, made it real in a way I wasn't ready for. Olivia stepped closer to me now, her voice softer, almost pleading. Ryan, please understand. I never wanted to hurt you, but I've felt like I've been living a double life for so long. I don't know how to fix it. I didn't know what to say. I wanted to scream, to ask her how long this had been going on, why she'd never come to me, why she hadn't trusted me. But the words didn't come. Instead, I just stood there, staring at her, feeling a sinking, suffocating weight in my chest. I had loved her. I had trusted her. And now, in front of me, I had no idea who she was anymore. Mark turned and glanced at Olivia. Maybe it's time for you to make a choice, Olivia, he said, his voice sharp. You can't have both of us. Not anymore. Her eyes darted between the two of us, the weight of the decision pressing down on her. I don't know what to do, she said, almost to herself. The silence that followed was thick, suffocating. I stood there, staring at the woman I had shared my life with, the woman who now seemed so distant, so foreign. I had no idea what was coming next. Would she stay with him? Would she come back to me? And then, something unexpected happened. Olivia turned to me, her eyes filled with desperation. Ryan, she said quietly, I need you to understand. This wasn't about you. It was about me. I was lost, and I thought I needed something else to feel alive. But now I see how wrong I was. Please, don't hate me. The words hit me harder than I expected. I didn't know how to respond. Hate her? I didn't know what I felt anymore. All I knew was that I couldn't just walk away from everything I thought I had with her. Her words hung in the air, fragile and broken. Please, don't hate me, Olivia said again, her voice barely a whisper. She stepped closer, her eyes searching mine, like she was waiting for something, waiting for me to react. But I didn't know what to say. I couldn't even breathe properly, let alone find the words to make sense of everything that had just unfolded. Mark stood silently behind her, arms crossed, observing us both with a calculating look. He didn't seem fazed by anything. He was as calm as if this was just another Tuesday. But for me, this was everything falling apart, piece by piece. Olivia's plea echoed in my mind, but I couldn't respond. The truth was too heavy, too suffocating. I had loved her. I had trusted her. And now she was telling me it wasn't about me. It was about her? I had no idea what to make of that. I didn't know what to do, she continued, voice breaking. I couldn't tell you, Ryan. I didn't know how to say it. I thought if I kept it hidden, maybe it would go away. Her eyes were wet now, tears streaming down her face, and for a split second, I wanted to comfort her. But I couldn't. Not after everything. I couldn't just pretend nothing had happened. Mark cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "Maybe it's time you leave, Ryan," he said, his voice colder than before. "She's made her choice." I felt my chest tighten at his words. The nerve of him. He was the one who had come into my life, wrecked everything, and now he was telling me to leave? I looked at Olivia, searching for some sign that she was going to choose me, that this wasn't the end. But her face was clouded with guilt, with something I couldn't quite name. She looked torn, her eyes darting between Mark and me. "I don't know what to do, Ryan," she whispered again. "I never meant for it to go this far. But I've hurt you. I've hurt both of you." For a moment, I couldn't think. I couldn't even hear. The world seemed muffled, like I was underwater. Everything felt out of focus. And then, without even realizing it, I said the one thing I never thought I would. "I can't do this anymore." It was quiet. So quiet, I wasn't even sure she had heard me. But when she looked at me, I saw it. The relief. The guilt. The fear. She understood what I was saying. Mark took a step forward, a smug expression on his face. "Good," he said. "It's about time." I felt my fists clench, but I didn't move. I didn't need to. Olivia was right there, her eyes brimming with unshed tears. She wasn't asking me to forgive her. She was asking me to forget. I looked at her one last time, my heart shattering in ways I didn't know possible. But I had to walk away. I had to. For my own sanity. Without another word, I turned and walked out of the house. The door slammed behind me, and for the first time in months, I felt free. But that freedom came with a price I wasn't ready to pay. The door slammed behind me, and the cold air hit me like a slap in the face. I walked away from the house, my steps heavy with the weight of everything that had just happened. It was over. Olivia, Mark, the house full of secrets, it was all behind me. But even as the world I knew crumbled, a strange sense of relief began to settle over me. I didn't know what would come next. I didn't know how long it would take for the pain to fade or for the anger to subside. But I knew I couldn't keep living in the shadows of someone else's lies. I had to start over. For myself. The drive back home was quiet. The streets seemed emptier than usual, the lights from the passing cars casting long, distorted shadows across the road. My mind was a jumble of thoughts, but one thing stood out above everything else: my future. I couldn't keep holding on to something that wasn't mine anymore. I had to let go. And in that moment, I realized something. I wasn't just walking away from Olivia. I was walking toward a new version of myself. One that didn't have to live in the past. When I got home, the house was quiet. It felt different now, emptier, but in a good way. I stood in the doorway for a moment, just taking it in, letting the silence surround me. It felt like the start of something. Something new. The next few weeks weren't easy. I spent a lot of time reflecting, sorting through the pieces of my life that had been shattered. But as I did, I realized that I had the power to rebuild. I was no longer tethered to a past that didn't serve me. I started doing the things I loved again, things I had pushed aside for so long. I picked up old hobbies, reconnected with friends, and took small steps to heal. Then, one day, I found myself in a coffee shop, a place I used to visit all the time before everything had gone wrong. I sat at a small table, reading a book, when someone sat down across from me. I looked up, startled. It was Mia, a woman I had met a few months earlier, before everything fell apart with Olivia. We had shared a brief conversation at a mutual friend's party, but I hadn't thought much of it at the time. "Hey, I didn't expect to see you here," she said, smiling warmly. I smiled back, a bit surprised but not uncomfortable. "It's been a while. How have you been?" We talked for a while, catching up on life, and something about her presence was comforting. There was no pressure, no expectations, just two people talking, sharing their lives. By the time we parted ways, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't experienced in a long time. It wasn't a whirlwind romance. It wasn't even anything that I'd call a grand gesture. But that conversation, that simple connection, reminded me of something important. Life didn't stop just because one chapter had ended. There was still so much more to experience, so much more to give and receive. And this time, I was ready. The path ahead wasn't perfect. There were still moments when I thought of Olivia, still moments when the pain of betrayal stung. But I knew that, eventually, those memories would fade into the background. What mattered now was how I chose to move forward. And I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't going to let the past define me. For the first time in a long time, I felt hope. Real hope. The kind that comes from within, not from the people around you. It wasn't a happy ending to a perfect story, but it was a beginning. And in that beginning, there was a quiet promise that no matter what came next, I would be okay.